It's those moments. It's those moments when you're up against something really difficult and you don't know if you can do it. And you make that decision in that moment that you're going to cringe forward and that you're going to push through the fear, the uncertainty, and the doubt. And you're going to do it anyway, despite being uncomfortable or awkward, that you're going to make the decision in that moment that you're going to cringe forward. And especially when it comes to being a woman entrepreneur, there can be extra challenges like doubt and imposter syndrome and knowing that you feel uncomfortable with being visible or seen. And a lot of times we see the end result and not the actual struggle or the challenges, or we're afraid to talk about those things. So I have a special guest today, my friend Ebonie Gipson, and she's going to share a little bit about what she's done to be able to cringe forward and how that's impacted her life and her business as well. So I'm going to unmute you. There you go. Welcome, Ebonie. I'm so glad that you're here.
I'm so glad to be here, Jen.
So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do for work and why you chose to do that.
What it is I do for work, that's a loaded question.
You do all of the things,
All the
right? So
things,
many things, so many
all
things.
the things. But I always tell people my main gig is building community through entrepreneurship. And the way that I do that is mainly through a consulting agency that I founded in 2017 called I'm Building Something Consulting. And so we specialize in strategic planning, branding, and marketing. And really, my goal is just to make sure that people are positioned appropriately to build their businesses out and get the best out of their work. Because we know what it's like for sure to build a business. And so if there's anything that we can do to make that easier, that's what we're here for.
Oh, heck yeah. And I love that. And even though we both do branding, we come at it a different way. And I think that was
Yes,
an important reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you. Because especially there seems to be a competitive thing. And I've noticed this, especially in women, that if
yes,
you're in the same industry, that she's my competition.
yep,
And I believe in abundance, that there's more than enough business and wealth to be
yes,
able to go around for everyone. And
yep,
that we serve different people, even if we're doing the same thing, because they resonate with who we are in our story. So
absolutely. And the reality is, I've reached out to you like Jen, hey, I need help with my brand, and I'm still coming. Okay.
heck yeah. Well, I mean, and it's not overnight because you get to that next level or there's that new thing. I
Yes.
know for me, I had someone else help me design my logo. Like
Yeah.
I help other people. I've designed them myself. I've given strategy around it and everything. But
Yes.
when it comes to my own thing, that's why I think it's so important that even as a strategist or coach or consultant, that we hire our own coaches,
Mhm,
consultants, or
mhm,
strategists to be able to help
mhm.
us with our business.
I think that's so true. I'm going through a rebranding, and so part of the or part of the beginning phases is, like you said, getting that logo. So I was more than happy to, but I do remember a time when I did not have the maturity to understand that. Like the competition and just understanding that there is enough room for everyone. And I'm so glad that you said that because I think sometimes we just naturally feel like everybody understands that concept and they get it and can run with it. And I come from Flint, Michigan. Flint, Michigan is an amazing city, but there is also a lot of there's a poverty-stricken mentality that we are
Mm.
growing out of and building out of. It's a disenfranchised community. It wasn't always that way. And so I noticed even when I was getting into the industry, the crabs in the barrel mentality is not always a mentality where people just wake up one day and they just want to be selfish and competitive and overprotective of their space. If you live in a space where survival is your number one priority, then showing up in business or to show up in business the exact opposite of that can be a bit unrealistic. And so sometimes you're unlearning behaviors that you have just picked up along the way, just surviving in life. And I think when you go from surviving to thriving in life, your mindset begins to change. You start to see, okay, there's enough room for everyone. Okay, it's okay for me to stand alongside someone and shine bright or let them shine brighter and be a support to them and them a support to me. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Heck yeah. And I'm wearing one of the shirts that you created.
Yes.
Hope
Yes.
is the norm. And I know that you had favor is the norm and everything. And I was like, I think you need to do hope People need
Yes,
hope. That was
yes,
like my word of the year and everything like
yes,
that. I think it will resonate. And
yes,
I know whenever I wear this shirt, it helps me feel more powerful and reminds me that regardless of how difficult something is, um, that there is hope.
yeah,
That it is the norm as long as you kind of shift that perspective. And I know you
yeah.
mentioned before that, you lived in Flint, Michigan.
Mhm,
And I met you at the Facebook Community Leader Summit and,
mhm,
learned about how you have a live program that you did on Facebook Live in the evenings. And I learned about what you did with water in Flint, Michigan. And the thing that blew my mind is I didn't realize there was still an issue with clean water.
mhm,
And I'm like, okay, well, the news wasn't covering that anymore. I didn't realize there was an issue. And I watched a video of you that I shared on social media a couple years ago too about advocating for your community.
mhm.
Can you tell me a little bit about that process and some of the challenges that you came against when you did that?
Absolutely. So advocacy is challenging, period, because you are fighting for change. And to believe that everyone is in the room and pro change is quite unrealistic. And so I think the biggest thing with advocacy is just making sure that you don't waver, making sure that you're very clear about your intentions and your personal code, your personal morale, making sure that you know why you're there and don't lose sight of that mission. Because there will be opportunities that come along the way to deter you from the number one goal and the number one mission for whatever you're advocating for. And so I kind of got into advocacy for the water crisis by way of a client that was working in the space on a project called the Water Box with Jaden
Mhm,
Smith. And so as I was talking with them about that project or about some other branding things that were going on, I wanted to figure out, okay, we're in the crisis, but what can we do, especially as millennials? How can we understand this better? How can we better advocate for ourselves? Because I think what was so disappointing was feeling hopeless during the water crisis because you don't necessarily know how to fight for yourself, especially when the people that are supposed to be in office and supposed to be in position are supposed to be fighting for you. And so through that process, I learned, about how to change your community through policy, how to go to your state officials, your local officials, and just really amplify your message. And I also learned the power of community when we are able to collaborate, when we're able to build together, then you're not walking that road alone. And so you can't do advocacy by yourself.
no, and like a lot of people that I'm friends with or that I know, it's usually something personal that it starts with,
Hmm.
and they realize that there's that need, and it kind of
Hmm.
pushes them to be able to take that action and
Hmm.
surround themselves with people who are supporting that. And tell me how social media has really helped you be able to advocate for I know it affects what you do for work right now too with
Right.
branding, but tell me about that because I know there's a lot of pushback and people are like, I hate the social media, even though this is being broadcast on social media. So even if you hate it, you're here.
You
So
are here. You are here, and it's not going anywhere. Social media has been a very powerful tool for my brand, for the initiatives that I support, for the things that I believe in. I think that when you are privileged to have influence, you need to make sure that you are utilizing that space of influence for good. And so I'm naturally a people person. My father was a people person, and so the gift of gab and the love for people is literally in my blood. And so if you meet me in person, the engagement is no different. I'm giving you the same vibes in person that I'm giving you on social media. And so being able to be comfortable to show up in that space authentically, but also being able to share. One of the things that I promised, I'm a person of faith, so I promised God, especially when I took this entrepreneurship journey, that I would share. I would share the highs, I would share the lows, because I knew what it was like walking in that space and feeling like you're alone. I also knew what it was like to see everything so glammed up and then not even being able to give a balance to the journey of entrepreneurship. So social media has been amazing. And we both do branding, and your focus is personal branding. So the power of utilizing your personal brand. And I believe my personal brand is what has helped my other brands grow and be able to flourish. And I've just learned through social media that you can find your tribe and they will ride with you. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing because you can feel the love and support, and then also the responsibility to be a light to someone else. And so it's more fulfilling for me to see on the back end when people are sending messages, and you never know the power of your influence until someone reaches out and says, "Hey, I really needed that today. Thank you for being transparent in your post. Thank you for keeping it real. Thank you for not sugarcoating it." So it's been a blessing.
I really appreciate you saying that, because authenticity, especially online, that is the number one core value that I have.
Yep.
Is authenticity, that I am who I am no matter where I am. And I love that about you too. So, and I can attest to the fact that I've read your posts and it's inspired me to be able to cringe forward and to do those things. So it's,
And I've been watching it, and it's like I have seen you show up, and I have appreciated it so much.
yeah, that's Christine Jerry. She was on a couple of weeks ago too. I love her. So
Hey, Christine. I love it. You're like, look, today I just don't feel like it. My lashes wouldn't do what my lashes were supposed to do, and this is just what we're going with.
dude, yeah. Today, I'm like, okay, are they crooked? Maybe they are. And
I was
that's
in the
okay.
mirror.
My eyelids
Yes,
do not have to be straight every day, because they're not. And sometimes I have a rough day and I end up crying them off my face. But
yes,
I'm not going to hold back from who I am. I have those gray robe days where I feel like I'm just going to sit and read my romance novel and
yes,
snuggle under my blanket and eat my ice cream,
yes. I
because
said
it's
if
too
people
hard.
really knew how I looked behind my Zoom photo sometimes.
Right? Right? I'm like, I can tilt the camera and I can show you the rest of this room with like the piles of stuff that I
Yes,
intended to clean up 3 weeks ago. But I'm like, that's real life. And
yep,
people, I
it's
think
real
they
life.
are craving that. They call it raw authenticity, where it's that raw
Mhm.
authenticity of just being real,
Yes,
that
I
you're
was
showing up.
literally scrambling around 10 minutes before, like, okay, let me pull this wig off, brush it, curl the front. If I turn around to the back, you guys are going to be like, what in the world? It's business in the front, but it is definitely leisure in the back. Okay.
I love that. I love that. And I love that you're comfortable public speaking. And I know you've talked about being raised in the church and singing and everything like that. Is there anything you would share with someone who's not necessarily an extrovert like you, that doesn't feel comfortable putting themselves out there, especially on camera?
Yeah. So here's the funny thing. I am extroverted, but I am also very introverted sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Tell me more.
It's sometimes, well, my dad was very outgoing. My mom was very reserved. She's a sweetheart, but she's very quiet. Her regular face is very stoic, so people think that she's mean, and she's the absolute opposite. But she watches the room and sort of sits in the back. And then when she feels comfortable, she comes out a little bit. And the longer she knows you, the more comfortable she feels, the more extroverted she becomes. And so I feel like I have a little bit of both. And there are some times when I'm in certain rooms and it could swing either way. So as extroverted as I am, I still relate 100% to showing up to rooms feeling very introverted or feeling very small. And or sometimes feeling like, am I really supposed to be in this room? And so it
Mhm.
is self-management. It is sometimes having to this just happened maybe a month ago. I was starting to get that feeling, and I'm like, do you even deserve to be here? And it's that self-doubt that we have to
Mhm.
constantly make confidence louder than that voice of self-doubt in our brain. But then also, I just had to go to the bathroom. I had to reaffirm to myself who I was. I had to validate, hey, you deserve to be here. If this moment is for you, God created this moment for you to be a part of it, and you have to show up, and not just for yourself, but you're here for a reason, and you've got people behind you that you're trying to leave the door open for. And so thinking about it from that perspective, like it's not just about me, that really, really helps me, even when I'm not feeling the opportunity, or even when I'm not necessarily feeling most comfortable. Part of what drives me is like, hey, I'm not just doing this for me. So I got to get it in gear. I got to get it together. And I have to rise up in this moment and be okay with it. And then, as long as you are doing your best to show up authentically, it makes it so much easier to live in the space, even in moments of doubt. Because even in moments of doubt, once you overcome that, you still get to walk in the room and you don't have to put on a show because it's who you are. So it makes the moment that much easier to relate to or to deal with.
Oh, I totally agree. And Christine's an introvert. And she's like, I totally can relate to your mom.
Yeah,
And that's the thing is knowing that your message, that your voice has value and your message has meaning and it's your time to be seen and heard. Like that's something that I hammer home and why it's important to cringe forward. Because
yeah,
regardless of how uncomfortable you feel in that space or in that moment, recognizing that it's more important and bigger than that fear,
yeah,
it's huge. It's
yeah.
huge.
And
People
I
need that
think,
message.
yeah, and I think the reality is when you are a person that is striving to do better, you have, like, you know, that even in that moment you're going to come down, or in the moment you're thinking, or afterwards you're thinking a million things you could have done better, or why did I say that, or oh my gosh, like, what was I thinking?
Oh, so cringy. I'm so cringy,
Yes,
like
you're
super
gonna,
awkward. Like I am so embarrassing. I'm like standing on the
yes,
seat of my
cringing is
minivan, like
so,
doing the
yes,
Titanic thing. Oh, awkward.
it's part of the process. And I think over time, you turn that cringy feeling into, you understand that it is also just a part of you that desires to do things well and do things in excellence. So how you balance it, the aftermath of it is not beating up on yourself so much, but using it as a constructive criticism opportunity to become better. And I will say that it takes time and muscle to get to that place. But every day, if you're working towards being less critical about the cringe and more constructive about the cringe, then it makes it easier. But it is a lifelong exercise.
Right? And I know that, you've talked a little bit about imposter syndrome and that voice in our head that kind of holds us back and everything like that. Have you had pushback at all from the public or on social media as you've built, as you
Yes.
say, I'm building something and I know there's people out
Yes.
there that want to tear it down, right?
Yes. Yes. There's one opportunity, or one situation in particular that I remember. I looked up to these people and they wanted to talk to me. And basically, when they talked to me, they said they really didn't like the way that I was moving. I was communicating with my audience. I was navigating through the community, and at the time, because I looked up to them, and this is just the power of words and power of influence. Like, I left that meeting feeling like you have to change, like who you are is not cutting it. But I'm so grateful that I have confidence in my identity and I'm very sure about who I am. Even in unsure moments, I am still overall sure of who I am. And I also rely on my faith to keep me grounded. So I went back, committed it to prayer, really thought about it. Also talked to my mentor. This is also why it's great to have a mentor, because when you're in a space where you're constantly navigating with people and you're concerned about, what they think and what they feel, if we say we don't care about that,
Oh, you're
we do.
lying. You're lying.
Yes,
Everyone
we
cares. We want that
we
that belonging is one of those core needs that we have as human
yes,
beings. We want to fit
yes,
in. We want
yes.
to be part
That's
of the
why
cool
it makes
kids, right?
partnership worthwhile and community worthwhile, because we want to belong. And so I had to let the process happen. So I let them say what they needed to say, went back and processed it. I'm very self-reflective. So I didn't just take everything and run with it, but I also, just I thought about, maybe there's some truth to it. Maybe there's some things I need to fix. But when I went through and talked to my mentor, all of those things, what I came back to is that God created you to be in this space with a very different approach, with a very different concept. Some people will not understand that, and they may never understand it. Some people may look at something as boasting, while the other perspective is motivational. Some people may look at it as pride, when the other perspective is, no, this is confidence. And so I really had to stand boldly in who I was, but then also understand that everybody won't get it. That was a everybody won't get it moment for me. And I know that if I would have taken that as face value and ran with it, then I would have been somewhere trying to be an imposter unknowingly, because I would have been trying to change who I was supposed to be for the comfort of someone else. And so yeah, so when you talk about imposter syndrome, it might be the opposite, but it is definitely a version of imposter syndrome. And then when I first started, I had imposter syndrome because I felt like, understanding marketing, I felt like I had to make it appear to be big versus
Mhm.
just being real about where you are and where you're going. And so I had all of these 39 things that I specialized in. And I'm like, first of all, you didn't really like that when you did it in retail and in corporate. So why do you have it on here? Secondly, you did it, but are you an expert? Nah, pull that off. And then, like, yeah, the marketing is good, but you don't even have a system in place. So I had to look at my brand and come to the reality very quickly that it was hollow in the beginning. Like, and it was that I want to make it so big so people will like it and enjoy it and gravitate to it and convert into a shopper. But if I cannot withstand, or if I cannot present or provide what I am advertising, then my turnover rate is going to be horrible. And then I'm creating something that I can't live up to. And I also had to learn not to do that with clients as well, because we're in branding. So sometimes you're like, yep, I can take this and run with it. We can go straight
Dude,
to the top.
no, no, or hey, just because I can doesn't mean I should.
Yes.
Like, I can build a website, I can make an email marketing funnel, and I have done it before. Do I like it? Heck no. But now I recognize that, and I can do the thing, but I don't run an agency model. I like the strategy part and explaining to
Yes.
people, all right, this is what I envisioned for you. Here's referrals to all the people I know
Yes.
that can actually have those
Yes.
deliverable goods, because then I'm able to focus in my zone of genius,
Yes.
and
Yes.
have the creativity and the ideas and that connection, and then the ongoing, consulting and coaching aspect. Some
Yes.
people don't value that. They're like, make me some social media graphics. And I
Yes.
can, like,
Yes.
I can
And
own the Canva, right? But
yep, I agree. And I think too, it's important as we talk about cringing forward, is sometimes the process allows you to get to that space. And that comes through evolution, brand evolution, that comes through living life more purposefully. So you start to fall more in sync with exactly who you are. Because when I first started, there was a lack of service providers. So some of the things my clients need, there was either a lack of service providers or there was a lack of affordability. And so I keep going
mhm.
back to, like, especially when you're in a certain area, or in a helping a certain area,
Demographic, yeah.
yeah, you have to take these things into consideration. And so I had to be some of the services that they couldn't afford. And I needed to also be those services to make sure that my business stayed afloat. So I'll never forget, Jen, because I had been in Canva. Before Canva, I was over in Logo Creator, making whole flyers on my iPad in Logo
Right,
Creator. Okay.
right, right.
Horrible, but I made it work for me. And so when Canva came along, it was like, okay, this is perfect. And then as I was helping clientele, they were like, you do graphics? And I'm like, no, but I'll do them for you. And then this just turned into a thing. So here I go. I'm like, okay, well, I need to make a whole marketing and a whole social design component. So I started this thing called Quick Market, right? Because I'm like, hey, it's revenue. Still,
Right, you're a salesperson, you're like, "All right, someone has." I'm
yeah,
not gonna say no. I
I'm
say yes,
still
and I figure out how to do it afterwards, right?
yeah, so I'm still trying to figure out who I am as a part of the process. And then I got there and I got maybe two clients that did not like the designs, and I was all in my feelings, and I didn't want to go back and forth with unlimited revisions. And I was like, you know what? This isn't for me. And I will still help in that area as needed. but I have gotten to the point where, hey, you don't need me.
Mhm. And that's that honesty and having that integrity in your business and knowing that it's better to not serve everyone
Yes.
and to serve
Yes.
well and just to own it, and it lights me on fire. You
Yeah.
know, I'm like, I'll help you refine your personal brand story and show up authentically online, and that's what I love. I can show
Yeah.
you how that translates graphically and visually. I'll help you choose your brand colors and your font, man, because I love my fonts. When you
Yes.
say
Yes.
and I'm like, "Oh, Poppins." I'm like, "Whisper those sweet nothings of fonts into my ears," right? I just love it. I geek out.
Like
But
somebody's like Times New Roman, you're like, ooh, what is that?
I know, I'm like, only, we're gonna go for a sans serif font so it's warm and opening and, inclusive and everything like that. But,
And it's
I
like people don't, and what we know in this space is like some of the things that we are so particular about, like this is what makes it genius because they're not thinking about those things, but we know in those smallest details, even in making sure that whatever brand font you use for your logo can also translate well for your flyers and also looks good on a letterhead and
Yep,
any other communication, and even your complimentary fonts that go with your brand. Just all of those things because we get it, and that's our job. We're here to focus on the details so they can be great, but I love that part of it. So when you talk about fonts and brand colors and understanding color psychology, it's like there's a whole world. It's
right?
almost like the back office of Disney. Like we see Disney operating, but there's a whole system behind it that is equally as fascinating for people like us, but it it's intentional. Every step, every ride, every move, every communication.
No, I love that. I appreciate not just what you do, but who you are.
Ditto.
Tell Thank you. I tell people, how to be able to find you, like on social media, your website, and everything like that.
Sure. You can go to buildwithebony.com. My name is spelled Ebonie. My mom did it. Don't blame me.
No, no, and then it's Gipson with a P too, and
Yes,
not with a B,
not
so
with the B. So buildwithebony.com, Ebony the Builder on Instagram, and Ebonie Gipson on Facebook.
oh, I absolutely love that, and I just want, thank you for being here, and I'm gonna share, like, a quick message with everyone before they leave. Your voice has value, your message has meaning, and it's your time to be seen. If you're hitting something difficult, cringe forward. Cringe through the awkward, the uncomfortable, and show up authentically online. If you need that support, because like Ebony talked about before, it's about community. I've built a community for you to be able to be there. You can go to cringeforward.com and be able to connect with us for $9 a month to be able to figure out how to show up as your authentic self online and have that accountability, encouragement, and inspiration to keep on going. Next week, we're going to be able to meet with my friend Andrea from Just Suck It. She's a succulent and plant specialist, and I look forward to seeing you then. Have a fantastic week. Remember who you are and that who you are has value.